one person's prints on it in blood, and that was Officer Sean Kinney, the officer that murdered my brother.
Was your brother an actor or in theater?
No.
Is this cop still on the force?
He's been promoted to detective.
He's now a detective.
My brother, within a 5-month period, Officer Sean Kinney murdered 3 people. The first man, allegedly, his name is Anton Barrett. He allegedly had a metal wallet. My brother, immediately there was nothing. Then suddenly there was this police-issued training replica gun. The third person that died was a young man named Jeremiah Moore. This officer murdered Jeremiah Moore 6 weeks after the murder of my brother, and on the night of my brother's funeral, he murdered Jeremiah Moore.
Okay, so I have a couple more questions to ask you. Do you have a message to the youth about coming into contact with the police?
Yes, I have a message for the youth, and my message is unfortunately very unfortunate. Although there's been a lot of publicity about police officers and the things that they are doing, the police officers, at least in Vallejo, they're not psychologically evaluated, they are not drug tested. I can understand fully the fear that any young person who comes in contact with one of these police officers can feel, especially when they know that they are being murdered for no reason, and all it takes is the word of a cop to say that you had a gun or you had a knife, and absolutely no evidence to corroborate that, and to know that they can die. I'll say that the best thing that youth can do to protect themselves is to get out and fight, to stand up for justice, to let them know that, hey, you know, you're one of us. You know what I mean? And this goes beyond any color lines, any age lines. Anybody can be in a position and be unfortunate enough to fall victim to a police officer, a crooked police officer. And a lot of people don't know that the police are not trained to shoot you. They're only trained to kill you. There's no training to learn how to just disable you or anything like that. They are trained to kill, and that is it. So what I say to the youth is just, you have to stand up and fight. You have to, you know, go out and get involved, because the future is up to us. You know.
Also, do you think if people were more properly educated about their rights and the laws and political prisoners, that things would make a big difference or a big impact on where we're at today, society, community?
I think so, but I think it has a lot to do with uneducated police who have a vested interest in crime rate being up. You have police who are the salesmen to the system. They're the salesmen on the lower level to keep them employed. So you have to understand who has an incentive for the crime rate to occur in a city. If the crime rate is low, then so is the police force. So you have to understand that crime does occur, but there's one entity that has a vested interest in crime, and that is the police. And you have youth who are not educated enough to know when they have been violated, and there is this fear that's instilled in them because you have police officers that are not trained or are trained to violate rights. So youth that are more educated and who are confident with knowing their rights, youth who are, reporting police, who are, reporting crime and letting people know, who are not afraid, I think those educated individuals, have a better chance of surviving the system as opposed to those who are not. and those who are not, they have a hopelessness mentality because they feel like, if a police officer can commit a crime against them and get away with it repeatedly, then what are they to do? They have nothing to live for.
Also, if I could just chime in on that, I think it's very important to realize the correlation. If it is so easy for a police officer to murder someone and to not suffer any consequences, how easy do you think it is for them to frame people, to illegally detain and arrest people and send them away for speaking out? That mindset that everybody that is in prison is guilty, they belong there, they did something, it's not true. The same way it's not true that everyone who is killed by the police is not necessarily guilty or caused their own death or had anything to do with it. That's not to say that there have not been people who have pulled out guns or done things like that. But in this day and age, we're seeing the frame of more than anything. And so crime, what person do you know is going to report a crime that they've seen to a murdering police officer? When he knows that this officer is a murderer himself, and then his name is detective, and it says to call him with information, for all you know, he might be there to knock you off next.
Right.
And so there is a direct correlation between crime and corruption. People say, hey, we need to get out and fight, to make sure that this violence stops. Well, how much faith can you have in a system that is murdering you? That is murdering your people, and it, like I said, it crosses color lines, it crosses all kind of lines. A lot of people just don't know it until it comes, sneaks up, it kills your loved ones. Or you're suddenly in handcuffs and you've done absolutely nothing wrong. And you suddenly have no rights. You have nothing. We had a big group that supported us and helped to protect us and things like that. There are many people who stood up who they didn't have anybody. And they were taken away or named as crazy and shipped off to this and violated in every way imaginable. And, like I said, there's a direct link between crime and police corruption.
And then just like another question is like to see, so everybody can because we all just know about what happened on TV and what happened to him as well.
Thank you.
But we just want to know who your brother was, before all this happened, just your everyday little brother growing up, maybe throwing stuff at you, hitting you, running out the house, can you just tell us who he was as a person?
Yeah, if you don't mind, I'll start. My brother, he was my birthday present. He was the first responsibility I ever had, He was a person who was cheerful. If you were down, you can count on him to make you smile. He was a very calm person, a very soothing person. There were no strangers around him. Once you knew him, you were part of his family, and he had a really big heart. He stood up for people if they couldn't stand up for themselves, and he had a good heart, and he had dreams and he had aspirations, and he deserved to live, and he had a lot to offer. And it's very difficult when I see, a young man, even a young man such as yourself, and I think of all the great things you're doing, and I think of the things that he could be doing. I think about how to know that he was murdered, and at that moment when he put his hands up, he knew that he was going to be okay. I know he didn't doubt it. I think about how, for all the things that it's good of a heart he had, that they tore him apart, that they tried to rip apart his character, and instead of being able to grieve, you have to stand up and fight and say, no, you're lying. That's not my brother. My brother was a beautiful person. And even though he's gone, I was blessed to have him for 23 years. So.
Y'all got me about to start crying too. Oh man. So, gee whiz. Do you have any last words that you would like to say?
I want to say thank you. Thank you guys all for doing the interview. We're family members and it's very taxing, but for anybody that has a heart, I know it weighs on you guys as well. And we appreciate all the effort and the time and concern you guys put into doing things like this. Because it's people like you that gave us strength and gave us hope to keep moving on and to not turn into monsters after something horrible has happened to you, you know. And so we want to thank you guys and everybody else who, you know, who supports not just us, but all the families of police murder, of police brutality, you know, of injustice. You know, it's going to get better, you know, but nobody said it was going to be easy, you know. So all we can do sometimes is just take it one day at a time. But everything that we're doing right now, you know, I know it's going to be all right. You know, we can't get our loved ones back, but we can make sure that nobody else has to go through this unnecessarily if we just continue to fight and we continue to unite and know this is humanity, you know. Just thank you guys. And, my brother, I wish I could just tell him I love him so much. I miss him so much, you know, but he still lives in me. You know, he's always going to be here, you know. And he was a blessing to everybody he came into contact. And sometimes God picks people who are going to be strong enough to fight this battle, because you ask, why my brother, why my family? And there's been many of people it's happening to. They were beat down, their souls were just tore apart, they could not stand up. So to those people, you know, you're not forgotten about either, you know. And so thank you guys.
No worries. I just want to say that me being a member of the Oscar Grant Committee and One Person, One Contact, like, I'm gonna keep fighting. And you know, I'm fighting for your brother and for the other families and victims of this police brutality. And I actually feel like I'm a part of your family. Like I actually feel like I met your brother, like, by meeting you guys. And I'm not gonna stop until they kill me or throw me in jail. Like, you know, so I'm gonna keep going. But just thank you for your time and your efforts, and continue stiff resistance.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you.